So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna like, hey, sorry for the technical difficulties. We send a message out for the people on Facebook to hop on YouTube where they can see it. All right, we back. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna send some of the people that was trying to get into our Facebook account. We're gonna send you over to our YouTube account so that you can see us streaming live. So we can just jump back into the conversation. You know, we was talking about Euphoria, and Kendrick Lamar kind of gave my little take as far as what I was thinking it was going to be, and how it ended up being something totally different.
Yeah. And I was just, kind of chiming in saying, I was talking about his craft, how masterful he is, and the way he positioned things. I think it takes some bravery, and that's what it's going to take for a lot of the artists to start making these call outs, because we veered so far away from where music used to be to where it's at now. I mean, it's a big shift. And we know music is a major influence. I mean, we were just talking about the influence it has on our culture, our kids, just every day. Music, it plays a big part in everything, our daily lives.
So, but the other thing is, it also shows the contrast. So one of the comments that I heard, while we was, after I listened to it and was kind of looking online or listening online, was somebody said like the stuff that he's been doing from starting from the diss tracks with Drake, going into They Not Like Us, then going into I forgot what it's called, Party Make the Party Die, is causing them to listen to Drake's music differently. Right? So they looking for more substance or something different than what has been, kind of portrayed out into the media, into our culture on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And I think that's important, and that shift is necessary, because what we see now, we see the effects of letting that type of music become dominant, over the years. So at first it was cool, I'm guilty. I enjoy it sometimes, I listen to it, but once you start letting that fester up and you see it played out in the communities and you start being affected by, locally, right? Then you're like, wait a minute, where's this influence coming from? Why is these kids thinking this way? So yeah, I really think he's on to something. And if more rappers will follow that blueprint, they can kind of shift, shift the narrative of where music's been going.
Yeah, for sure. And so much so, I don't know, I didn't have enough time to do any research on it, but J. Cole just came out with some new music like 2 days ago with I guess a battle rapper called Daylight. Actually was like I think a ghostwriter for Drake on some of his music. And I listened to the song. I believe Daylight started rapping first, and I was like, "Oh, he rapping, like tying stuff in where it's just like you gotta listen to it twice to catch what he was really saying." You know what I mean? And then I listened to J. Cole, and it was just like it was a rap comp. It was almost like a rap battle of who can get the most into those 16 bars for that song.
Wow.
Like how many layers, you know what I mean? So like I can say something that rhymes, but I can say something that rhymes that means one thing. And if you go a little bit deeper, that same line can say something different. So you got to kind of unpack that whole lyrical chess match, if you want to say.
Oh yeah. And that's where the skill level coming in, double entendres, triple entendres, you know what I mean? And leave it up to us to dissect it, and you have to be in a place. That's why, I'm a Nas fan, man. I like Nas, but I feel like Nas always had a level of consciousness with him where he can kind of, do that, paint that picture. And, so with that being said, and I asked that question at the beginning because I was just thinking about music a lot and where the shift from where, we're 80s, 90s babies, where the music has come from then to now.
Right.
And I was thinking about it. I said, what's the big difference? Because it's always been songs about drugs. It's always been songs about, sex, murder. But when I was comparing the two, I said back in our day, it was more subliminal. You could play a
Right.
song at a barbecue. You could play TLC, You Gotta Go Downtown. You listening to that song. If you're a 7-year-old kid, you don't know the context of that song. Now you listen to Sexy Red. I mean, no knock to her. But if you listen to it, it's overt. It spells everything out. So now this music is not made for the kids, but the kids can listen to it and get it right at face value.
Right. Right. And so do you think like that's the difference between maybe when we was growing up and some of the kids now because of social media is a fact. Like we could listen to a song and be like watching a movie, like that's a movie. Like it's not real, right?
Exactly.
As opposed to now, like the fake stuff is being made to look real. You know what I mean? So then you taking the real stuff and you think it's not, then you think it's fake. You know what I mean? And it's just like I don't think they have the wisdom and understanding to be able to separate the two. It's like, no. They just doing this to make money.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't really.
Exactly. But that's where the parenting come in at. That's where the parenting, I think our parents set a standard. And not only that, we didn't have access to it 24/7. I remember having my Walkman or, my cassettes. There was times of the day where you couldn't touch it. Right. Sunday, you knew what you was doing. You was doing your chores, you was doing your homework, and that was an after thing. Maybe later on you listened to it. So it wasn't 24/7 in your spirit. Right. Now it's like that's what they're hearing, and nobody's there to kind of help them navigate through, like what you said. Is it real life or is it music? And the way that it's portrayed is portrayed as real life. Right. Prime example, I don't know if you've seen this clip this week. T.I. and Little Boosie. Right. So their sons, I believe, was shooting a video, and they went on the scene and they saw that they had guns, drugs, on the scene shooting a video. And T.I. went off. He went off on a rant telling his son, look, this could land you in jail. This ain't what you need to be doing out here. So on and so forth, which any father would do, a good father would do. Right. But my question is, does he have that? I'm not gonna say right, but has he earned that right to do that because of his past, and that's what he glorifies?
So I think he's earned the right because he's made a change in his life. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. It's different when you try to have that right and you still doing that same thing. Like that would be a contradiction to like his son. Like he's a product of the environment of which he came up in and was raised in, right? Okay. And so some of the things that he did was based off of the circumstances that he was living in, mm-hmm. right? And the only thing in his mind that he thought was attainable and was like, okay, I could literally do this was the guys that he could see, touch, and feel. He saw how they was getting money, how they could get out, and he felt like that was the only way that he could do it. Now, what happened was there's a lot of loss that came with that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I mean, he went to jail because of that lifestyle. But the other thing is that lifestyle also relates kind of just like our platform is guys out there that's in the same situation that we had that they can relate to. And so when he got into rapping, he was telling his story from his point of view, and there just happened to be an audience for it, right? And so he wasn't telling people, go do this. He's saying, this is literally what I did. And he was telling a story. It's no different than the story on the screen. I mean, everybody, you can't go into a barbershop and they don't got Scarface up on the thing. True. You know what I mean? True. That's a story mm-hmm. of somebody who was in a situation and tried to get out of it. And the only way they could see to do it was one way. But if you can grow and learn from that and then turn your life around and then be like, look, if I had the tools, because now he's talking to his son from a perspective of, I did all of that so that you could grow up in the lifestyle that you had, for you not to even that to be even a consideration of a career or what you should be talking
No,
about.
I get it. But for every one of him in that situation, is 10 other ones who's glorifying it and telling our kids, this is the life. This is how we are living. So I don't think they have the knowledge to separate the two. Because I get it. I mean, what you're saying is absolutely correct, and I agree because people change, and we tell our stories, you
Right.
know. So, but you have some that's not even in that life. I'm talking about far removed,
Right.
not in it, and this is what you're telling our kids. And so I feel a certain way because I have to educate my kids, and I have to raise my kids on principles that. But you're getting rich off of painting this other picture and you're not living it. So it's almost like a catch-22, you know.
It is, man, and it's crazy because when you think about like with hip hop, R&B, when it first came out, it was a window to our culture and what was happening, right?
Mhm.
The stories or the songs or the raps that you got was based off of the life that we was living at that point in time,
Oh yeah,
right?
no, no.
And so it was it was a narrative of
Mhm.
what we were experiencing and what we were going through. And it sold because there were so many other people that was going through that same thing that we was going through.
Right, you're right.
And then so now, what you have is now they're trying to sell us into doing something, or I'm not gonna say us, but they're trying to sell our culture into doing something that we don't necessarily, believe in or stand behind.
Right.
Right. But if they can get to if they can, whoever you want to say they is, if they can sell that to a younger culture,
Mhm.
they can get them hooked on what they're talking about. And then that becomes what the community is. Instead of the community the community deciding what we're going to listen to, they are trying to decide what we listen to.
How do we shift that though? Because I mean, I know we all have our favorite, artists, and it's a lot of conscious rappers that and let's be honest, the conscious rappers, the ones that had substance, they're not the most popular. They're not the ones. So how do you shift the culture or shift that mindset of say, hey, instead of spewing this, because I mean the record labels, honestly, they're not even getting behind the positivity, the positive music. They may let you drop one positive track, but if it's not kill, bang 'em up, drug related, unfortunately, it's not going to get no airtime.
Right. And so it starts with our community and it starts at home. You know what I mean? You got to be present and parents and, to be able to speak to that, to be able to say, hey, let me hear what you're listening to. Okay. What is it about this that relates to you? Because from what I hear, this isn't anything that you've seen modeled as a respectable life choice. And so explain to me, so it takes the adults that are around these scenarios actually being adults and having hard conversations.
Oh yeah.
And it's not even really hard conversations. It's just about, okay, you guiding our youth. If you want to live in a safe space or safe environment, right? Then you want to be the one molding the people that's going to be in that environment.
True. That's so
right?
True, right?
Because if you don't and you allow somebody else to mold them, now they got more respect for that person that they've never seen or heard or encountered before in their life. They giving them more weight than what they would give you, and they seen you 2-3 times a week.
Right.
Because you haven't taken the time to like, yo, why are we doing this?
And then that plays out and you start to see the effect of it in your neighborhoods. Because now the crime rate goes up. Now you can't say nothing to them because you didn't say nothing to them earlier. So now when they acting out these songs and lyrics and you see 13, 14-year-old with Dracos and, guns tucked in the back. So now we want to intervene. Well, you say you want to intervene. You say you want safer neighborhoods and things like that. But at the same time, nobody wants to snitch. Nobody wants to talk. So now where
we getting into it today.
I mean, because that's where we at with it now. Because okay, we're all sit around. Oh, you hear about on the news? This one done this. This one done that. You can go to the corner store and hear names. This one done this. This one done that. But they're not down to the precinct saying, "Hey, I heard such and such done this." And how can you want a better neighborhood, a safer environment when we're still discouraging snitching?
It is, man. And it's crazy because I've had this conversation with somebody who's even close to me. And it was just like, well, if I the retaliation effect of if I tell, right? And if my name shows up in the records, right? Then do I become a target for this person? And unfortunately, man, which is crazy, but unfortunately, I think that we are more likely to hurt those who look like us than those who don't, right? And so, and what do I mean by that? Is that same person that committed that crime would feel comfortable going into one neighborhood and retaliating, but wouldn't feel comfortable going into another neighborhood.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We see that all the time,
right? And so it's just like, well, when did we get to that point where, because that's how we start to protect our communities. And so I don't want to go off on a tangent.
No, go ahead.
But you think about like the word that everybody in real estate or just in development in general, they talk about gentrification, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens with gentrification? With gentrification is when a community flips the demographic of the people that stay there. And most times it's not to the benefit of those who are already there, right? And so you'll have a place where maybe there's a high drug area, high crime area, and nobody's telling, right? But then what happens around them is that there are people who are still moving into this area, and they can't afford to stay in these other places. So where is real estate the cheapest at? Where usually it's not the most safe,
right? In those areas.
And so now what you have is you have people that come in and they take the risk. They take the risk of starting to develop that neighborhood, right? And then it takes somebody to take the risk to buy in that neighborhood. And it's funny because it happens, I call it slow fast. Because it only starts with like it starts with one or two houses that get sold, somebody fixes it up and they stay there. Then all of a sudden there's these vacant lots that are around and that developers start to buy, and then they start building brand new houses on there. Most times when they start building those brand new houses, they actually not to sell, they're actually to rent, right? And so now you get families that are coming in because they want that nice new house to live in, and they'll pay them. They don't have to pay as much as they would in another place, but they get a much nicer house, right? And so now you've got investors that made the risk, took the risk to get people in there, whether they bought or sold at the early level. Then they build new constructed homes that they rent out. They get more people in there. Then they start to build other houses in that neighborhood that they begin to start to sell. Well, when those people start to buy, it's almost too late for the people that were staying there, because at that point in time,
the property values start to go up.
The prices have started to go up, and the people who was like, I would never live over there, now can't afford to buy it because it was just
They don't
because they,
re-gentrified.
yes, because going back to how this conversation
Mhm.
started, because we wasn't
protecting
protecting
our neighborhoods.
our rights.
And I get it. And two things, I want to make two quick points. First of all, just going back to us protecting our neighborhoods, I think there is a sense of responsibility and danger there if, with telling. But I think if you start early enough, you come home from work, I worked all day long, you 14, 13, you're on my stoop doing illegal things, get up out of here.
Right.
I don't have to call the law on you,
Right.
but I don't have to tolerate it.
Right.
See, and I think tolerating it and accepting is what allows it to grow.
Right.
And then, but on the other hand, when you talk about people coming into the neighborhoods and starting to redevelop, it's funny how the town's legislators, law enforcement start to take more interest in these same areas.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're interested because
It's starting to change.
and it's a different it's a financial benefit now.
Mm-hmm.
And of course taxes go up, everything else go up, but where was this same interest in this neighborhood prior to redeveloping? So that's it's still
Right. So man, so it's crazy because I had this conversation a little bit earlier today, and the interest when you're talking about a town or municipality, the interest starts to come because people start to move in that area that care about that community, right? They care about if they got sidewalks or not. They care about the people that's standing outside all day, right? And they got kids that are they might be walking to school, or they got to get off the bus and they got to walk through those things, right?
Mhm.
So they start to care about that, and it's not like they saying, okay, well, I don't like you, but I don't like how uncomfortable you make me feel and how uncomfortable my family feels because of where you choose to hang out, right?
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, if you stay next door, that's one thing. But if you don't stay here, why do you feel comfortable just hanging out here all day long?
No, I get it, and I understand, and I don't understand an adult. So I go back when I was a child, when I was younger, we had areas where the adults, they partied, they had a good time, they hung out, and we thought we was a little grown before our time.
Right.
And it was many times some of the guys I would go over and they would had their little party packs or whatnot, and they'll dap us up and hey, let me get. Nah, yo man, go ahead, you go on about your way, we don't want y'all over here, y'all kids go ahead. See, it was back then, it was still a sense of separation, what I mean? Even
Right.
though we may not be doing everything right, we're not going to mingle with the kids.
Right.
Now, you ride through some of these neighborhoods, it's sad to say, you got the elders hanging out with the teenagers and the kids, so it's no separation. And
Right.
yeah, so I mean, I think we have the responsibility to start in our own communities to kind of, like you said, take more pride in what we will tolerate and what we won't. And I see if we can get them cleaned up, because I mean, they're not coming